Hello, hello. This is Yuri with Moving Sales Professionals and Let's Talk Moving podcast. And with me today, by popular demand, I have Moe Hostetler, the owner of B2B Moving, joining me again. He's been on our show before, so we're going to have him again. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Yuri, for having me.
Good, good, good. I appreciate having you again. So, for those of you guys that don't know, Mo and I go way back. How many years we know each other now? Got to be
For
going back
5
like
years.
what? Yeah, something like that. The 2000. I think we met like what 2019, like around there, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
2019, 2020. So about what? Right, about 4 or 5 years or so
yeah.
approximately. And Mo at the time, he was the manager of crop moving location in Columbus, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, now I opened up a branch, pretty much in Columbus. It was the first. It was the first branch of crop that Tim decided to open up in another location, and I was the first one to do that. Yes,
Right. And we did all the sales for you at the
yes,
time.
we did.
And now all these years later, basically we've been working together for what now? 4, 5 months, something like that.
Yeah. Well, we've been probably 6 months now because when I got back from Columbus right away, I call you and I
January,
started
right? I
putting.
think we
Yeah,
started.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
About
So
then.
so guys, you know I usually don't put too much focus on moving sales professionals. That's just generally not the way that I do things. But we have an opportunity here going 6 months, so you can hear it from the person himself. So Mo, what do you feel from the start to now? Where are we at?
We'll give you just numbers because numbers speak louder than anything. When we first started, obviously, and we weren't, we really weren't doing anything. We just started, well, a fresh moving company. Now looking back, 6 months ago to this day, now we have 150,000 out of in sale, 156 to be exact. Right. So that just 6 months of doing business. That's a good testimony for, moving sale professional. These guys have been kicking butt for us. The movers have been doing really well, doing really good job when the guys sell for us, do a really good job getting their job done and getting 5-star reviews.
And now for a word from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more. And of course, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this all the time. To me, salespeople for moving companies, we're the initial voice of the company. But at the end of the day, no matter how much we promote you and no matter what we say, you have to walk the walk on the day of the move. We can talk the talk, but you got to back it up. Because at the end of the day, if you don't back it up, those bad reviews are going to pile up and they're going to sink you pretty quickly. So you got to be able to do that. And I must say, ever since we started with B2B, I don't think I've heard a single negative remark from any of the customers. And, I'm the first one to hear about any of that stuff. So we very rarely hear. There's nothing but positive remarks. And I think that that's something that every moving company needs to strive towards. You need to work in unison between the sales reps in your office and between the movers on the day of the move. You got to work together and you got to be able to pull it together. So, I think that that's an extremely important thing. That's where we are with that. But it feels to me like things are increasing and things are getting better. So to me, that certainly does make a difference. It looks like things have been increasing. Wouldn't you say? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. When we first started, I mean, our marketing wasn't on point. We were buying leads and leads. Some leads provider were just not good, right? And we were spending money. And I remember you and I having the conversation, man. We need to find a better way to get more lead in here. We need to find a better way to get better leads and get rid of some of these leads providers. And we also just got Google Guarantee certified, and we just opened the faucet and it just started pouring in, you know. with our good Google reviews. And one thing I appreciate, I would say this, one thing I appreciate about moving sales professional, they really cares, right? I mean, you really care, because when we get a bad review, I guarantee it, I'm gonna hear it from you. So that, you know,
Absolutely.
that so that will put me on, on my best game. So I really appreciate it, especially like if a customer concern is, is at your table, you're gonna let me hear it, and I'm gonna have my guys, know like, hey, this is what we need to look for. So, which I really appreciate that you care about my business just as much, and it's a win-win.
And I think that that's important because it goes a full circle. It's between I'm not gonna say that we're interested in making the money. Otherwise, why would we be in business in the first place? So I'm not gonna say that we're not interested in that. Of course we are.
Right.
So is the moving company owner. Of course you are. So is the customer who wants you to do a good job and spend as little as possible. Of course they are. So are the movers that are doing the job on the day of the move that want those tips. We're all, we all have ulterior motives, of course. But at the same time, I think that we need to work in unison. As a company, we always want to help a company grow because at the end of the day, it affects how we do things. Because if we're working in unison and if we have very few complaints, if you guys do the job the right way, if we quote the right way, if all those things are happening, it's going to help you guys have more work, we're going to book more jobs. It's a win-win situation for everybody, and it goes back to some simple things that a lot of companies don't think about.
Hi, I'm Gary Bines, the CEO and founder of movinginsurance.com and Relocation Insurance Group. Would you like to secure every move with confidence and shield your company from claims while also increasing your revenues? With Relocation Insurance Group and movinginsurance.com, you and your customers can choose specialized insurance solutions for every step of the move. From moving insurance for household goods to fine art and commercial cargo, we cover it all across all 50 states. From an all-risk policy covering the entire shipment to only specific items, to a total loss policy, you can count on us to protect your customers' valuables. Partner with us and benefit from our comprehensive programs managed by our expert team of insurance professionals. With the moving industry's leading moving insurance partner by your side, you can secure every move with confidence. And if you're wondering about compensation, the answer is yes, of course. You'll earn additional income for referring your customers who are interested in insurance. Join our network and let's make every move a success. Discover more with movinginsurance.com.
When you're a new company, you want to set the processes and set the expectations for your movers, for your office, your whole operations department. You want to set them correctly from the beginning because it's going to be hard to change things down the road. It's much easier to set them in the right place from the start because at the end of the day, if you are the owner of the company, you are the head. And if you're not doing things the right way, your movers won't either. So it's all about setting the expectations, setting your goals, and making sure that you continue following through on them because that's extremely important. To me, and Mo and I had certainly talked about this a lot. It's always been important. If you show up to a morning job and you see that it's bigger than you anticipated, we need to know about that. The sales office needs to know that this is going on because then we can reach out to the first customer and give them the heads up that they have a bigger job, that the price is going to be higher. That way, by the time it's actually comes time to pay, they've already had time to come to grips with the fact that they're going to spend more than they anticipated, right? Or than they thought that they were going to spend, right? So by that point, they're already had plenty of time to think about the idea, and at the same time, they see that the guys are hustling hard, and they say, okay, and they come to a realization a few hours later that what, there really is a lot of work, and they really are working hard, and there's really nothing that I can say about the fact that I have to pay more money here. It's just something that needs to happen, right? And then at the
Yeah.
same time, we can call the second job and we can give them the heads up and let them know that this is happening hours before we have to be there, giving that customer a choice of what to do next. They have a choice. They can reschedule a job. If they have to cancel a job and get their deposit back, fine. That's better than getting a bad review. or they have a choice of going to work, working, making some money, and then meeting the guys later. All of those options help keeping you away from a better view. They also help to make sure, frankly, that by the time the guys get there, that they still get a tip. The arrival time for the afternoon job is between 1 and 3, for example, right? And at 3 o'clock, a customer calls you because they haven't heard from the movers. That's horrible, because by then they've been sitting all day. They're waiting for the guys. We sound like idiots because we have no idea that there's a delay, right? We have no idea that this is going on with the morning job because nobody told us. So now the thought of a customer is like, well, who am I dealing with? They can't even control their guys. They don't even know.
Absolutely.
Well, what is my look going to look like? So now all this anxiety settles in, not to mention the fact that they're mad because they could have worked that time, or they could have done something else instead of spending hours and hours and hours waiting for movers to show up, right? So all of those things lead to what? Movers finally get there. By that point, it's probably not 3 o'clock. By that point, it's probably 4, 5, 6. And by the time they get there, the customer is upset because they've been waiting all day. And now every little scratch, every little rub that
Yep.
happened 20 years ago,
Yep.
suddenly the movers made right there and then when they were there, right? And
Yep.
then they're complaining. They're saying, "Oh, your movers aren't moving fast enough." And meanwhile, between you and me, how can they move fast enough if they
Right.
did a 7 to 8 hour job with 3 flights of stairs on each end, right? So they're not going to move fast. So it's in your best interest to prep that customer well in advance. Give them those options, because when they don't have options, at that point, you're gonna get asked for discounts, 100%. Okay. You might get a bad complaint. Not 100%, but you might get one. Okay. If you don't give a good enough of a discount for them to accept it, right? And not to mention that your movers are not going to get tipped. Your movers are exhausted. At that point, by the time they're finished, if it's summer like it is now, you'll be lucky if they come back and work the next day. So you got all these things that could potentially happen that are going to impact your business. So all
Oh,
these things,
absolutely.
making those calls, that's setting processes in motion that will allow you to run a smooth operation years down the road. But you got to set that up from the start. The longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be, because by that point, your movers have worked for you for X amount of time and they're used to doing things the right way. They're not used to calling the office. They're not used to calling the customer. They're not used to providing this information. So to them, it just becomes an inconvenience, even though for a business, for a moving in business, it's a necessity.
No, I would like to touch on that a little more because you did a really good job. From a moving company owner perspective, look, in the morning, right, we set the tune for the whole day, right? If your morning is chaos, boy, your whole day going to be a chaos, right? And especially for us, we use Smart Moving for I'm not trying to promote them whatsoever, but I'm just telling you for our CRM, we use Smart Moving, and within Smart Moving, we can send our text messages in the morning. But especially for that second job, like you said, it's very critical that we do call the customer when we know from the beginning that the first job is going to take longer. We can't wait like at the end before we say, oh yeah, this job is no, we already know when we get there that this job is going to take longer. You have to call the customer immediately and tell them what is going on, because the customer doesn't know. They are very unsettled, right? And it's moving time. We know getting married and moving is it's the second most stressful thing you can do. So that customer is antsy, and therefore your guys are in a very, very bad position if they don't do that due diligence by calling the customer ahead of time. So you definitely touched on that very well. But from a moving company owner perspective, the morning got to go smoothly. If your morning is bad and your guys are not in tune with the morning, especially when you have new people, it's going to set things off. So you got to make sure your team lead is on top of that right away.
Yeah, and I mean that it all comes together. So sometimes you talk about there's different aspects of running a moving business. Okay, A lot of you guys are either still on the truck, maybe you're a foreman, maybe you're a helper that's learning, that's going to be a foreman soon. Maybe you're you're transitioning from being a foreman to being an owner. Maybe you're already transitioned and you're already starting to do your own gigs and you're starting to separate yourself from whatever moving company employment you had prior, right? No matter where you are in this process of transitioning from being an employee to being an employer, you got to start thinking about the processes that you need to be put in place to be a successful business.
And that's a hard, and I'm sorry not to cut you because I just make that transition. That's a very hard transition to make. Every responsibility fall on your shoulders. You don't know how much, man, that's a hard transition to make. And I give everyone, someone that start from working on a truck, work their way up and eventually start their own moving company. I give you a huge kudo and congratulations because that's a very hard process. I don't mean to go off because I think that touched me a little bit. Transitioning with that, because it was such a hard transition for me when we came from Columbus to come back home. I was severely sick and I didn't even know. I used to go on the truck, moving people during the winter, and I was hurting so bad. I was hurting so bad and I didn't know what was going on. Like, you know what? It's the winter. My fingers are getting a little bit cold, and I just started, I'm a mover, I'm an owner now. I can be, your attitude, your attitude can affect your guys. So I didn't want my attitude to affect my guys. So I was pushing myself, even though I was so sick and I didn't know to go forward with that. Maybe a month later, I found out I had cancer, right? But I used to go on and move, right? And I would throw up on the side of the truck and I wipe my mouth real quick. I didn't want my guys to see me because I don't want them to see me that I'm soft. But sometimes it's okay, you gotta be able to open up to your guys, right? And and I did that for months. I did that for months, in the morning, just in the winter. And so I'm just saying it's a hard transition. And I give everyone that's done it a huge kudo and congratulations. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, and it's tough, especially if you are battling an illness. I mean, I've had members of my family that have cancer currently. I have members of my family that have passed from it. So it's a tough thing to battle, especially when you're trying to raise a business. Because honestly, I give you mad props because realistically, you're trying to run a business. You're thinking ahead of your family. At the same time, you have to think about yourself too, because if you don't, you're going to outstretch yourself and you're going to only make it worse. And
Oh yeah.
it's you got to think about that stuff too. But so I obviously I give you props for that. But getting back to transitioning from a worker from an employee to an employer, you guys got to realize one thing. You've all been in the industry, like in different roles, right? So let's be honest about one thing, okay? When you're a worker, the only thing that you really care about, number one, is you and your paycheck.
That's
You
right.
don't care about the bills that the company has or that the owner has or the expenses or any of that stuff. Why? Because it's not your problem. What happens in a lot of cases, workers, they see these bills from the job and they're like, oh man, they're swimming in money. I need to go
Yeah.
and ask them for a raise. But here's the reality. When you make that transition on the owner now, you now realize how expensive insurance is, how expensive truck maintenance is, how much you're spending on gas, how much you're spending on packing, how much you're spending on hiring those workers, because now you have to put an ad out and you have to spend money on that marketing, how much you're spending on leads, how much you're spending on marketing your business, whether it's postcards or whether it's Google or whether it's something else. All that stuff is, big, big, big deal. So it's like you got to put that in perspective. And then the other thing too, look, we all know that movers, I'm not saying all, but in a lot of cases, movers give out free packing materials to customers because they think they will get a better tip. Well,
Yeah.
as the owner of a moving company, it's every time that happens, it's your money that's walking away somewhere else that, frankly, you can't spend on your bills. you can spend on your rent, you can spend on your family. So now, obviously, none of us mean to be assholes, but when you're running a business, it's your neck on the line. So,
That's right.
you know what? Inventory control is extremely important. So, inventory control, you got to look and you got to see, okay, I have 10 wardrobe boxes on the truck. I have 10 small, 10 medium, 10 large. Of course, in a lot of cases, it's going to be a lot more than that, but I'm just for comparison's sake, right?
Right.
And then this much tape, this much mattress covers, bubble wrap, etc., right? Every truck that you send out, it needs to be the same. That way you never get confused, right? So you know how much is on every truck when it leaves your warehouse in the morning, right? And then what happens? At the end of the day, that truck gets back. You check the truck, you see what's left. Then you look at the jobs from that day and see how much was paid for. And you'll know immediately if some of this stuff is going to the left. Well, you can understand the movers that they're doing that. But the thing is that in those particular cases, they have to lose more by giving this stuff away in their paycheck than they gain by giving that stuff away, because
Right.
that's your money that they're giving away ultimately.
Well,
Okay.
inventory control is extremely important. Like you said, movers going to care about their own pocket, not just, I mean, anyone. If they can get more tip to give 10 boxes out, that's what they're gonna do. I mean, you just got to make sure that your processes are pretty tight around inventory control. That's just it. There's no if and but about it.
Right. And you got to make sure that you got to come up with an idea or incentives of some sort, how you motivate your movers in terms of charging what they're supposed to charge. You don't want them to overcharge, okay? But you want them to charge what they're supposed to charge. Yeah,
Right.
there's going to be some situations where materials may be given to the customer, but first of all, they should always go through the owner. And second of all, that should always be in those situations where that would mitigate a potential situation with the customer because there's something was damaged or whatever the case may be, right? Something that would potentially avoid a complaint. But once again, that needs to go through the owner. You need to be aware of what's either the owner or a manager if you have somebody in place that manages that whole thing, the operations guy, whoever, right? So all that stuff, you need to make sure that it's controlled because otherwise, ultimately, once again, they're not running a business. You are. They're here with you today. If you don't do things correctly and you shut down tomorrow, they'll go and they'll find a different moving company.
That's true.
But where are you going to be?
Yeah.
You're going to have to go back to having to work on the truck. Is that what you really want? One thing is working on a truck for yourself. Another thing is working for somebody else.
That's fact. That's fact.
So
You're
prepare
right.
yourself for the transition. One of the biggest things that we see as a call center is that in a lot of cases, people that are transitioning, they don't think about the budget that they need to have for marketing. So if you're going to go don't just go without any, you need to have budget for marketing. It's not going to be cheap. You need to spend money on Google. You need to spend money on postcards. You need to spend money on leads if that's what you're doing. You got to evaluate your market and try to figure out what works best in your area because some leads work good, some leads don't. But realistically, the cheapest lead is not going to be your best lead. The cheaper the lead, the higher the percentage of junk. So if you're like, oh, they're just $5. That's great. You know what? How much junk are you getting? Is it 30%?
That's right.
40%? How much are you throwing away? Literally, you got to think of best way for your company and for your area, what works. And once again, as I always say, you got to be creative about those type of things. So Mo and I also, obviously, I'm doing this podcast. Mo has some social media now going that he hasn't had before. So we're all trying to do things creative, and that's 100% what I support out there. So you guys got to get creative. You got to do something new. Separate yourself from your competition.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true, man. Look, I mean, when we started here, there's a lot of big companies around us, but like we've been doing things the right way. We've been doing things the right way. We've been treating our customer the right way. And it's all just piled up to making us a good company. Now people are referring us. We are getting, a lot of referral customer. We are getting friends and family calling just They seeing how hard we have worked. It's all about treating your customer right. Sometimes you don't have the budget for marketing and other things when you're just starting, but do the little things right. Do the little things right from the beginning, and it will compile.
But of course, we can talk about this a lot, and we don't want to bore you guys to death. We want you to come back and to listen to the show, right? So once again, Mo, thank you so much for supporting us, and of course, we'll all have you in our prayers, and hopefully, you're gonna beat this thing soon. So, because I want you coming back strong. Okay,
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
what I want to see. So once again,
Absolutely.
thank you very much for joining us. And like I always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like us, please subscribe to us, check out our Instagram, TikTok, and all those other things that we're putting together, and continue supporting our channel and our show here. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.